Hello, and welcome to a special webinar on avoiding surprises and the related construction cost associated with Title 24 energy compliance and Cal Green requirements. This webinar is brought to you as a courtesy of Pacific Modern Homes and Red Tape Express. Construction changes are common. Building your new home is exciting. It's filled with daily decisions, coordination, challenges, and dynamic change that is common to all construction projects. You're building your home, you want the freedom to make changes and to balance it with understanding the impacts. Changes to reduce construction costs may impact energy compliance or sustainability requirements or the inspection and testing required by the building department. Simple changes or deletions can have big impacts on your construction project. Energy compliance impacts can be related to something as simple as rotating the front of the building slightly to avoid something that you found in the field that you didn't want to dig up and relocate, or switching from natural gas to propane or to electric for heating and air conditioning. Could relate to the type of water heater and the efficiency of the water heater, or the type of heating and air conditioning system and the efficiency of the system that's being installed. Insulation requirements may come under change due to unique situations that you encountered in the field, or window sizes, or even relocation of a window in the field will have an impact on the Title 24 energy calculations. In addition to all of these things, you have home inspection or HERS inspection and testing that must be done, and it needs to be evaluated and reviewed very closely so that you don't miss any items. If you hire Red Tape Express, we will provide a summary sheet that will be placed on the drawings, and it will itemize the most critical Title 24 energy requirements that you need to meet. And if you can't, if something changes, you know that it's going to have an impact and you can address it early in the process. Common things: the HVAC system. What are you going to install for heating and cooling? In this case, it was a package heat pump. Maybe you're just going to put a wall furnace in. All of these will be identified for you, as well as the efficiency for the piece of equipment being installed. The efficiencies shown on this summary sheet are the minimums. You can always install something more efficient, but this is the minimum that you can install. So when you're having somebody bid the equipment, this is what they can install as a minimum. Same thing goes for duct insulation. Duct insulation is regulated. Most commonly, it's R6. Sometimes it needs to be R8, which is more expensive, so you need to know which one it is. In addition to the duct insulation, if you're installing a whole house fan, which is very common in the Central Valley or in the high desert areas, we'll help you identify what the airflow and the power draw should be for that, and we'll even give you a model number that you can use for bidding purposes. Does not mean that you must install this specific fan. Just means that you must install a fan that has that general airflow and power requirement. You can always pick something else out of the CEC's directory of approved fans, just based on your bids. But this is the baseline of where you need to be. You have efficiency requirements that apply to your windows that are being installed. They have to meet certain minimum U-factor requirements and certain minimum SHGC requirements. In this case, the numbers that you see here are the maximum numbers. So if you install something that has a larger number, you're not in compliance with the calculations. But if you get a bid on something that's better than that has a lower number, you're fine. You don't need to be concerned about it. Building insulation. We'll identify what the insulation needs to be for the floor, the walls, the roof, the demising wall between the garage and the house. We'll give you all that information. It's on the drawings, but this is a good quick summary. We'll provide you with a water heater. We'll tell you, okay, it's going to be a tankless water heater or a tank water heater or a heat pump water heater, what the rating is for that specific unit that we included in the calculations, and the energy factor that it must comply with. We'll also provide you with information on the indoor air quality ventilation fan that must be installed under the new Title 24 requirements. In this case, they needed to have a fan or group of fans that could provide 77 CFM minimum airflow at the low speed setting on the fan. This will be tested by the HERS rater, so it's something that you need to be aware of. In addition to the things that are required, we will also identify things that are commonly installed but may not be required, and it's to help you and the building official understand they're not required on your project. So in this case, the owner didn't need to put a radiant barrier at the roof deck. They could, but they don't need to. They also are not required to install a cool roof. This is not a problem on the coast, but if you're in the Central Valley, many houses are typically installing cool roofs. In this specific case, they didn't need to, so the owner could pick any color and any type of material that they wanted to install on the roofing. In addition to those items, there's also the HERS verification requirements. This is a very small list of just duct leakage, airflow, fan wattage, and indoor air quality fan airflow. These are the minimums for a ducted system. If you have a ductless system, you will only have the requirement at the bottom in most cases. However, there are many other additional HERS measures that can be included on a project in order to achieve compliance, and our office would work with you to help you identify which ones are required. If they're on the list, the HERS rater needs to take care of them. Common mistakes that I see owners doing is they fail to plan, schedule, or update or follow up with a HERS rater. So they may have started out in the beginning with very good intentions. Things get busy. They hired the HERS rater, but then, they forgot to call the HERS rater out until the end of construction. That can be a very big problem. The other item that can happen is you fail to contact our office and have us share access to the registry. The HERS rater and all of the subcontractors working on the project need to have access to the HERS registry because they have installation certificates they need to complete. One of the most common mistakes I see is failure to plan, schedule, and update or follow up with a HERS rater. Many good intentions in the beginning. People go out and hire their HERS rater in the very beginning of the project, but then they forget to follow up and have the HERS rater come out to the project before they close things up. HERS rater comes out to the project, sheetrock's already up. It's too late for them to do many of their inspections. Now there's a problem. The HERS rater cannot rely on photographs that anybody has taken before things were closed up. They have to actually see it. So if it becomes a critical mandatory test, you may find yourself in situations where you have to open up sheetrock walls or ceilings so that the HERS rater can get the information they need. Another common failure is to fail to contact our office to share access to the registry. This may seem simple or maybe even unimportant, but in reality, it's critical. All of the subcontractors that are working with insulation, lighting, windows, all of them need to have access to the HERS registry. They will have to complete installation forms. If they don't have access to the HERS registry, they can't complete those forms. If they can't complete their forms, the HERS rater can't come out and do his testing, and you won't have the forms to turn into the building department at the end of the project, and it could create substantial delays and cost to try and get those done at the last minute. Failure to complete inspections and documentation is required by the building department. There, again, are a whole series of installation certificates that have to be completed. There's a whole series of HERS verification certificates that have to be completed by a HERS rater. There are also Cal Green installation certificates that must be completed. And in some jurisdictions, you have local ordinances that have extra requirements. These will all be identified for you. But the one thing to bear in mind is the installation certificates for Title 24 must be done on the registry. The Cal Green installation certificates can be done on a piece of paper, and we provide you with blank copies of those forms so that you can complete them and turn them into the building department. But the Title 24 energy certificates, both the installation and the HERS verification certificates, those must be completed online. There's a charge of about $1 per certificate, and they must bear the HERS provider's watermark on them so that you can turn them into the building department at the end of construction. So it's very important that you make sure these all get completed. If you're confused by the process on the installation certificates, don't worry. In many cases, the HERS rater will offer that as an additional service. They'll complete those forms for you, but somebody must complete them. The building department, in most cases, will be looking for them at the end of construction. Now, I'd like to provide a couple of examples of common mistakes that I have heard about that delay construction, may delay occupancy, and worst of all, they have a cost impact to the owner on the project. The most common mistake number one, is forgetting to hire the HERS rater until you're nearing the completion of construction. This is just the most common mistake because you get so busy doing other things. It just doesn't occur to you to have the HERS rater on site to do inspections and testing until the building inspector shows up and says, okay, we're ready to close out. I need to get your HERS rater certificates. And you haven't had the HERS rater on site at all. Typically, the HERS rater needs to come out and inspect the ductwork before any sheetrock goes up. They'll also need to do their duct testing, and they'll need to test for minimum airflow and for fan wattage. You want to get those tests done as soon as you can in the process so that if correction measures have to be done, you're not having to tear out sheetrock or other items in order to get them into compliance. Also bear in mind that exhaust fan that's in the bathroom, or multiples. If you have decide to use multiple exhaust fans to meet the air quality requirements, those have to be tested by the HERS rater to verify that they don't use too much energy and that they're providing the minimum air quality flow. Okay, so now we've looked at all of the items that are required, but how do you know for sure what's required on your HERS measures? Well, we give you a summary sheet that we told you about on the drawings, but the most authoritative form to go to for the HERS rater testing requirements is the energy calculations. And this is a typical page out of the energy calculation package. The listing is typically on page 3, and it's typically at the bottom of the page where it says HERS feature summary. If we blow this up, it becomes a little bit easier to see what's required. This is a relatively small list of items that the HERS rater would typically need to do. So he will need to verify the indoor air quality ventilation fan and the minimum airflow on your heating and air conditioning system, and to verify the EER rating on the equipment, and to verify that the fan efficacy or the fan efficiency is appropriate. And he will be asked to look at duct sealing and testing it, both for installation and for leakage. This is the official list. This is where the building official will go to find out what tests need to be completed. This is where the HERS rater will go when they give you a bid on what are the items that need to be tested and inspected. This list is automatically populated on the HERS provider's registry where the energy calculations were registered and certified. This is the same location that the HERS rater will go to complete the certificates of verification. Second most common mistake I see is a change in the water heater from natural gas or propane to electric. Many people will get out into construction, especially if they're up in the foothills. They're planning on using propane. They get the cost of the propane tank installation and the monthly rates and the cost per gallon for the propane, and all of a sudden the electric water heater looks a lot more appealing. Unfortunately, when you switch to an electric water heater, you end up having a direct impact on the energy calculations. The energy calculations are based on the assumption that people will not be using electricity for water heating. In fact, if you have a typical house that passes by 3 or 4% better than the allowed energy use, if you put an electric water heater in, that one change, you will automatically make it 30% or worse than what is allowed by Title 24, and it is very difficult to overcome that. Frequently, when people run into that situation and it's too late, they're at the end of construction and they're trying to get the verifications from the HERS rater, they're going to find out that, oh, now I have to install solar hot water panels on my roof in order to make this electric water heater work, or there just is no way to make it work, and I'm going to have to remove the water heater, install gas piping, and install the required gas water heater, or I'll have to install a heat pump water heater and possibly make other upgrades just to overcome the fact that I made a simple change from a gas water heater to an electric water heater. This is a very expensive mistake, but unfortunately it's very common in areas where all they have is propane for their gas heating purposes. Another common mistake is to fail to complete the installation certificates. I know I've talked about this several times, but it's really very, very important to understand that the installation certificates must be completed by either you, the homeowner, if you're doing the work, or the subcontractor that is working on the project. Okay, in this case, I have a list right off of the HERS registry of the forms that need to be completed. And we blow it up just a little bit so it's easier to read. We'll see that the first one on the list is fenestration installation. Well, that's the windows. So you've got to document all the windows that are being installed in the house and that they meet the minimum requirements. Then there's going to be one on air sealing. Did you air seal all the doors and the windows? And it's going to ask you to document that. If you did the insulation installation, it's going to ask you to document what did you put in the walls, what did you put in the roof. If you have a floor, what did you put in the floor. So it's going to ask you to document that and print that form out to turn into the building department. It's also going to ask you on the space heating and cooling system to document exactly what did you install, what were the ducts, what was the fan that was inside the unit. All of this has to be documented in order to get an installation certificate that you then turn into the building department. So this is frequently missed until you get right to the end of the project, and it's very difficult to fill these forms out if you don't have all the information at your fingertips. When we scroll on to the next page, we'll see that there is indoor air quality. This is the bathroom fan that has to be verified, and all of its efficiency requirements have to be listed on this installation certificate. The next one down is lighting. Every lighting fixture has to be certified. You have to list what the fixture is, that it meets all the requirements, it meets all the switching requirements. All this has to be done and turned into the building department. The last one is the hot water form. It's telling the building department, okay, I verified that I've installed all the appropriate insulation on my hot water piping, that I put in the right water heater, that it meets the efficiency requirements. All of these forms have to be completed by either the homeowner or the installing subcontractor, and these are in addition to the forms that would be turned in for the HERS rated measures. Now, these are all completed online. They're all digitally signed, and they all come out with a watermark on the documents. And in this case, these are done on the CalCerts registry, and they charge $1 per certificate. So it's not bad, but there is a slight charge involved in each one of these. Common mistake number 4 is the fail to install the correct lighting or switching. I get this from owners, I'd say probably once every 6 months. They didn't install a high efficiency light. They just put in a standard screw-in light fixture. You have to install light fixtures that are compact fluorescent or LED. And if it's recessed into the ceiling, it has to be rated for direct contact with insulation, and it has to be rated airtight and installed with a sealant or approved gasket. And if it's a recessed LED light, it must be installed to meet the JA8 requirements. Well, what's this JA8? If you order light fixtures over the internet, you're likely not to get an LED light fixture that meets the JA8 requirement. But if you go to your local electrical shop, hardware or lighting venue, they will know what JA8 means, and they won't sell you anything that isn't meeting that requirement. It will typically be stamped or a label on the light fixture telling you that it has been approved for JA8, and that has to do with the fact that it has an efficient ballast in it. The next most common error I encounter is common mistake number 4, failure to install the correct lighting fixtures or switching. All lighting must be high efficacy. The next most common mistake I see is failure to install the correct lighting or switching in the house. All lighting must be high efficacy. That's indoor and outdoor lighting that is attached to the house. Doesn't affect your landscape lighting, doesn't affect anything that's not attached to the house. But in order to be high efficacy, you're talking about installing compact fluorescent or LED, and if it's a recessed light fixture, it must be rated for direct contact with insulation, airtight, and installed with a sealant or approved gasket. And if it's a recessed LED light, it must be installed to meet JA8 requirements. This is an important issue. Building departments are catching this now. If you purchase your light fixtures from a local lighting store or electrical hardware location, they typically know what JA8 means. There's usually a label on the fixture itself or on the box that it's shipped in saying it is JA8, and it has to do with the efficiency of the light fixture. Now, recessed light fixtures, I said before, have to be rated for direct contact with insulation or airtight. This includes light fixtures that are between 2 floors. So you have a 2-story house. You have recessed light fixtures on the first floor. They have to meet this requirement as well. Failure to install dimmers or vacancy sensors where required is a real common issue. They are listed for you on the drawings that you receive from PMHI. However, if you do fail to put in the right one and the building inspector catches it, it's a fairly simple change to pull out the old switch and put in the appropriate one. A little bit of delay, a little bit of cost, but it's not a catastrophic failure. Failure to install motion sensors and photocells on outdoor lights, that's a requirement. You cannot put in a light on the outside of your house if it doesn't have a motion sensor and a photocell, and it still has to be a high efficacy light fixture. So these are things that can be changed, but again, they cost money. The next most common mistake I encounter is failure to have the heating and cooling contractor provide manual J heating and cooling load calculations. These have to be done on a room-by-room basis, and manual D duct sizing calculations, and manual S heating and cooling equipment sizing to the building department for plan, check, and review. Now, many jurisdictions are now enforcing this. This requirement has been a CalGreen requirement for the last 6 years. Building departments are just getting to the point where they're requiring. Historically, I have instructed owners to have the contractor that's installing your heating and cooling system do this documentation. However, some building departments are not allowing this portion of the work to be deferred. So if you haven't hired a mechanical contractor to do this at the time that you're submitting to the building department for your permit, you may find that the building department is going to require it anyway. If you encounter that specific issue, our office has provided an alternative to Pacific Modern Homes where we can put together and provide you the manual D, the manual J, and the manual S documentation for the building department. And it's based obviously on the size of the house and whether it's 1-story or 2-story, just due to the complexity of the requirements and the calculations. So if you need this service and we can provide this documentation for you, you can provide it to your installing contractor. They're just required to install it as we have shown the equipment selection and the duct layout. If the contractor wants to change it once he gets in the field and put in a different unit because he can give you a better price, modify the ductwork, that's fine, but he will need to develop his own manual J, D, and S documentation and resubmit it to the building department. So this is an option if you get stuck. Recognize there are some building departments that are requiring this at the time of submittal, so you want to talk to your building department. You don't want to get to the counter to submit your drawings just to find out they're not going to take them, and now you're waiting 2, 3, 4 weeks for a very busy contractor to complete this documentation and give it back to you so you can go into the building department and submit for plan check. So talk to your building departments. They will tell you whether they will allow you to defer this until later on, or they'll tell you if they have to have it at the time that the plans are submitted, the same way that they're asking for the truss calculations and the fire sprinkler calculations. So it just depends on the local jurisdiction, but we have an option here for you if you need to have it completed. Another very common mistake is when you're bidding out the heating and air conditioning equipment, the contractor comes in with a really good price, but it doesn't meet the efficiency requirements listed in the energy calculations. Typically, that is not a catastrophic failure if it's not too far different from what is shown in the energy calculations. But you need to contact our office so that we can help you verify it's not going to be a problem. In some cases, the building department may require updated energy calculations in order to make this work. Now, logically, you would think, okay, if I'm going to change the type of heating and cooling system, I'm going to get rid of my ducts and I'm going to put in a ductless system. So that's going to be more efficient because I don't have duct leakage. Guess what? From the Energy Commission standpoint, you actually get a penalty for using a ductless system right now. It's just the way the calculations are set up. Hopefully that'll get corrected, but it's been a problem for about the last 10 years, and I'm not expecting it to change anytime in the near future. The other thing is sometimes I get owners really want to put in a hydronic floor, heat the floor. Great system, a little bit expensive. You get down towards the end of the project and you can't afford to install it. You're going to have to go to a baseboard system, or you're going to have to go to just a ducted heating and cooling system. That has a direct impact on the energy calculations. So again, if you're changing systems, please give us a call. We'll take a look at it. In most cases, we can let you know very quickly whether or not it's a problem. And then if the building department requires you to provide revised energy calculations, we can help you get there for a real minimal fee, but also avoid a real problem at the end of the project by installing something that actually makes your house not comply. Another mistake that I see happening from time to time is that an owner will elect to put in some additional requirements like a whole house fan or solar water heating for their hot water heater, or photovoltaic PV panels to generate electricity, and they take credit for it in the energy calculations, but then when they get towards the end of the project, it either gets missed or it gets taken out for cost reasons. If it's something that is listed in the energy calculations, it's really important to give us a call. You may decide not to put in solar water heating, or you'll do that, but you'll upgrade the photovoltaic panels. Those are simple adjustments that can be done in the calculations early on just to let you know that the house is still going to comply. In many cases, the building department may not even require you to turn in revised or updated calculations, but the last thing you want to do is delete something and then find out that it is going to have a big cost impact because you have to put it back in again or do other upgrades. Sometimes it'll have no impact if you put in better heating and air conditioning system, or a better water heater, or better windows, or more insulation. It may be that the things that we've listed on the energy calculations aren't required because the house is better just by value of the items that you selected to install as construction progressed. But it's to your advantage to know that you don't have an issue. And so if this happens, give us a call. We'll pull up the energy calculations. It's very simple to just do a real quick run through on the simulation, let you know whether or not it's going to be a change or not. We don't charge you to do that type of verification because it's to our benefit that we don't have to be giving you bad news about having to make significant upgrades because you failed to talk to us earlier and catch the problem and avoid any of the issues with the building official. Okay, last mistake is failure to complete the installation certificates for Cal Green. Now, we talked about the ones for Title 24, but there are a whole series of installation certificates for Cal Green, or the sustainability code that California has placed in effect. They have to do with construction waste, VOC levels in the sealants and caulking and the paint, the carpet and pad that's installed, cabinet work. There's a homeowner's manual. It's very simple. There's heating and cooling, contractor training requirements that all have to be followed. They're all listed on the Cal Green sheet for you. If you're using our office to prepare your Title 24 energy and Cal Green requirements, we'll even provide you with a blank form so that you can fill them out and turn them into the building department. But don't forget these, because if you get to the end of the project and you're trying to figure out what was the VOC level on the sealant and caulking that I installed 6 months ago, you're not going to know. And you're probably not going to be able to find the paint and the VOC labels on the paint. You might be able to find the carpet and pad. You might be able to find the cabinets because they may have put a sticker on the inside of the cabinets to tell you that they use the proper wooden and composition woods. But don't wait until the end because it's very difficult. In fact, when we send the calculations to owners, we give you a list. And one of the things we really recommend to owners when you're starting your construction project, get a 55-gallon drum, paint on the side of it Cal Green. Every subcontractor or any materials that you buy, you throw that material can into that 55-gallon drum because it will typically have the VOC label on the outside of the can, and you can then easily put together these forms at the end of the project. So make sure you have this documentation right at your fingertips. It's a lot easier to dig through a drum and put this form work together at the end than it is to try and guess at it. Okay, recommendations. Review the drawings closely. Verify before making any changes on insulation, water heater, piping distribution, heating and cooling equipment, lighting, any HERS inspection or testing, Cal Green measures. Make sure you look at what's on the Cal Green sheet. Read it from front to back. I know it's a little time consuming, but it will tell you everything that you need to do to comply. Most of the information's on the drawings. Some of it's not. You will not find drawings that are going to tell you what carpet to buy or what paint to purchase, but the Cal Green sheet will tell you what are the requirements for those items when you get ready to purchase them. So make sure you take the time to review those, maybe make up a little checklist for yourself so that you don't find yourself getting caught at the end of the project, because it can be a very, very painful experience at the end of the project when the building official doesn't want to give you your occupancy permit. If you decide to work with Red Tape Express, our services typically include consultation with a homeowner builder to discuss desires and evaluate options. We'll prepare the energy calculations based on all of the options that are agreed to. We'll assist the owners with registration and the electronic signatures that are required to sign the energy calculations. The registered energy calculations will be handled by an approved HERS provider. We will pay for all the fees. Coordination with the local building department and the local requirements. We're going to let you know what's required. And if there's anything special in the area you're building, we're going to tell you right up front. We're going to be providing you with drawings with the energy calculations and the CalGreen requirements clearly listed. We're going to provide the homeowner builder with blank forms to help them gather the information so that when you get ready to do the installation certificates for your energy portion, you'll have the information at your fingertips so you can fill it out online very easily. We'll also provide you with the CalGreen installation certificates so that you can manually fill those out and turn them into the building department. Now, normally we offer this whole group of services for $750, but for Pacific Modern Homes, we have a $450 package that includes all of these services. A summary of all the services listed above is available from Pacific Modern Homes. It will itemize all of the requirements, all of the services we're going to provide, and at the very bottom, if you do encounter a situation where you need to have the manual J, D, and S calculations, we have duplicated the fees for providing that additional service if you're interested. I hope that you found this presentation useful, and if you have any further questions, please contact our office. We'll be happy to answer any questions you might have.